Welcome to the Brazil Expat Journal, that BJ you can trust. My name's Phil. I'm here with Peter, and we will be your guides as we travel through this beautiful country called Brazil. How are you, Pete?
I'm good. Business is booming, but you know how it is in December. It's about to dry up like, like an old lady's private part. So I'm getting the money in while I can.
Oh, yes, I know how those old lady body parts are. Anyway, guys, we had such a good time with Lee and Alissa a couple months back talking Brazilian music that I decided to invite them back because it's the end of the year. We want to have a little bit of fun, and we're just going to talk more essential Brazilian albums. We're going to share, each of us is going to share 3 more albums with you, and hopefully we'll just continue doing this because there's so much Brazilian music. But before we get to that, I want to do a little bit of house cleaning. First is this. Thank you for listening. Okay. We just hit 300 subscribers, which is kind of cool because, I don't post as much as some other YouTube channels. So it's cool that we do have a following here, folks that listen and they go back and listen to the old podcast. Sometimes I'll see the numbers are low, and then 3-4 months later, it's like, oh my God, folks listen to the podcast, which is really cool because it's a labor of love for us. And we really try to help you guys as much as possible to adapt to this country. Second piece of news is that in 2 weeks, we're going to have our final podcast of the year, and it's going to be kind of an open lines type of thing. Just, reflection of the year, the good, the bad, the ugly. We'll talk about some of our favorite moments on the podcast, and it's free for you guys to call in. Okay, so we did this before, and it was really fun, where we allow listeners to chat with us. So tune in 2 weeks, okay, on a Monday at 10. And my last little piece of news, guys, before we get to the music, is this. I published a book. I'm on Amazon, okay? And it's more of a test run to an actual book that I will really publish, hopefully next year, about life in Brazil. This one is just a little memoir about my life, and I don't expect anybody to read it, but I do expect you to buy it. Why? Because it's like my birthday gift. I turned 40, guys, and I don't celebrate birthdays, but I do celebrate how many times I've been around the sun. So I will not be upset if you spend $2 and buy this and never read it. I will be upset if you don't read my real book, but give me a present, show your appreciation for me. and that's it. I mean, it's just 40 chapters of, small anecdotes. Some of them are a little more serious. Some of them are kind of silly. Some of them are whacked out. And that's it. Okay. So if you want to show some appreciation for me being alive, buy my book and I will buy beer with it. That's exactly what I'm going to do. But I want to get right to it, Pete, unless you got something pertinent that you need to share with our fellow listeners.
Not really, no.
All right, then we're going to get to it because I am excited. We got Lee and we got Miss Alissa Sanders with us. Lee Andrade. Let me get them on the call here. Oh, look at them. They put their little pictures up. So beautiful. Here they are. Hey, guys. How are you?
Hi.
Well, I'm so proud of you. I didn't know about your book.
Oh, well, I didn't tell anybody. That's why I didn't know. But I will do better promotion for when the real guide to Brazil comes out. Hopefully next year. I'm still working on it. But this is it was supposed to be just some Facebook posts, some silly Facebook posts, but it just got longer than I thought, Facebook posts should be. And then I said, let me make a book out of it and mooch some money out of people.
For beer.
Anyway. Guys, we all picked 3 albums this time around to share with you. And they're pretty varied. I love seeing the picks. Nobody knows my picks. But as usual, Alissa and Leandre. Lee, I always call you Lee. Can I just call you Lee?
Just call me Lee, bro. It's all good.
All right. And by the way, Lee Andrade, give us your Instagram page before we do anything else.
It's Leandrad music, just the way it is written there, and the
Yes.
word music right after it.
And
Yeah.
Alissa, your Instagram page.
Alissa Sanders underscore music.
Cool. And guys, it's in the description of the video. Both of these folks here are very talented musicians. Please check them out. Um, Alisa is more on the jazz side, and Lee is more on the rock and roll and just whatever goes side. And so check their Instagram pages out. But Alisa and Lee, you got to bear with me because you know I always cheat. You know I'm a cheater. And before I get to my actual picks,
What'd you
I just
do
think
this
that
time?
collectively, I think we all made a big mistake last time that we didn't even mention Tim Maya.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
I definitely want to put this one up here as an essential album, The Essential Soul of Tim Maya, Nobody Can Live Forever. This came out in 2012, a beautiful collection of his early stuff, which is really fused with psychedelic, American soul, with Brazilian flavor. It's like Tim Maya at his just grooviest, you know? So it's a really great album. You can listen to a lot of it on YouTube. Check it out. Some stuff is even in English. This is right
Wow.
before I think he came back to Brazil from the U.S.
Mhm.
And another album that I would recommend, not just an album, but a collection of albums, are all of these I actually did. Growing up, this is how I got into Brazilian music. My parents had a bunch of these vinyls, the art of, and then it had the artist. And it's a great collection where you can get a primer on a lot of Brazil's biggest artists, Gal Costa obviously being one of them, but they have them on pretty much any big artist. So if you see these at the local, lojas americanas or wherever, if people buy CDs these days, I don't know, but
Banquinhas de revista.
yeah, banquinhas, whatever, or you can even find the old vinyls. They're great, great primers. They have their hits, their classics. So check those out, okay? Check those out. So are we ready to go?
We're
Yes.
good to
Yeah, I'm
go.
good.
All right. To Maya to guide us. One of the greatest.
Yeah.
And we're going to start with Lee tonight, with
Oh,
Luiz Melodia. Go ahead. Tell us a little bit about this.
the Luiz Melodia album.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
sounds
you
good.
see, Luiz Melodia is, it might be like a slightly lesser known name. Yeah, that's the one.
Sorry,
And
guys, I forgot to show that. There's the album covers. I thought I had shared it, and we're here now.
I think like the best like male voices in Brazilian music are probably like Tim Maia, Milton Nascimento, Javan, and this guy. He's got like this super beautiful bluesy voice, quite airy sometimes, kind of voice, kind of emission. And he's got like a very unique style. He's also a songwriter. He's a good interpreter also, but he
Mhm.
also writes songs. And this album, when it came out, it made a huge success because it's just like delicious. And it's a live album, so it's also a sort of a compilation, of his best songs. So it's a good one to get to know his work because you sort of get to listen to the most famous songs, and they are very, very good compositions. And like if you get to listen to this guy, you're gonna understand what I say, what I mean by one of the best Brazilian voices ever. He's not like a virtuoso. He doesn't have this amazing range, but he's got like this most beautiful sound, and he's quite versatile because some of his songs like travel a little more towards the jazzy bluesy path, and some of them are like super Brazilian. And the lineup is also pretty interesting because it's he himself and two acoustic guitar players, one nylon strings, and the other one steel strings, and it just feels, now they're so well rehearsed, and everything certain kind of falls into the right place, and the repertoire is amazing. It's really amazing, and You can't go wrong. All the songs are good. His voice is one of the most beautiful voices, and the arrangements are, kind of simple because it's only two acoustic guitars, but very soulful and moving. And he passed away, I think, maybe 4 years ago or something like that. And he's sorely missed, bro. I went to three concerts of his, and they were all amazing. They were all like, and he had like a great stage presence. And he's one of these guys who can really sound like honest, singing different styles. When he sings very Brazilian stuff, sounds like super Brazilian, and he's a carioca from the slums. And but then when he goes a little more towards the jazzy side, he's got all it takes too. And by the way, when you get to know, when you understand Portuguese, he's a very unique lyricist. He has like uh, pretty inventive images. His choice of words are very sort of unexpected. He comes up with strange, like slightly bizarre combinations of words. Those. So he has his own style of writing lyrics too. It's a pretty amazing artist, I think.
I remember when
Huh?
I said I remember. Oh, I'm echoing. Got a big echo. Hello?
Hello?
That's
Yeah.
better. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. No, I was echoing. No, I remember when he passed away, and I had posted a little thing about him. Real interesting musician. And yes, we're gonna get into a lot of jazzy stuff tonight. Ooh, you guys didn't see who I picked. Any Alisa, have you heard this guy? Into Luiz
I
Melodia?
have. I have one of my best friends here loves him. I haven't heard this particular CD, and
Mhm.
I don't know why I never really got into him, even though this friend of mine really loves him. But I'm compelled, Lee, and I already went to Spotify and I put it on my like list, so I'm gonna check it out.
I
Oh,
think you will like it, sweetie.
oh yeah, and folks always ask, and let me see, I'm gonna do it early tonight because last time you were asking me to write it in the comments. It's Luis Melodia Acústicos. So get your little Spotify list up, folks, to listen to this. So, all right, I like this. I have not heard this one, so I'm gonna check it out too. Let's move on to Alisa, and she's gonna
Ooh,
write her name correctly. Yes, Anelis Assunção. Sou suspeita,
yeah.
estou sujeita. No so santa. Let me
So
try that.
I'm Elise. I had the great honor and I don't know, gift of performing with her in October in Sesky Pompeia. And she is the daughter of Itamar Simpson, which is a super important figure in Brazilian music. I was trying to think of like who to compare him to, like for people who don't know Brazilian music, like, and I thought, oh, I guess if you could cross like George Clinton with like, what was I saying? George Clinton, like Funkadelic with, oh damn, I forgot who it was. But he's just him. Itamar is him. Like he just had this singular voice, and one of those artists who's iconic. Like he doesn't sound really like anyone else. Um, and he's an amazing songwriter, super creative, super like not in the box, right?
That's true.
Actually, one of your picks, Lee, is a guy that he worked with. I forgot who the Barna.
Arrigo Barnabé.
Yeah, they had some kind of connection together, didn't
Yeah.
they? So
Mhm.
Itamar's amazing. He's like, no, you know what? Who he would kind of remind me of in American music would be like a Bootsy Collins type figure, but like Bootsy Collins meets like experimental funk. Like I don't know. Anyway,
You're
I'm
thinking
gonna
Sun
listen to
Ra.
Bob.
You're
Huh?
thinking you're thinking
Yes,
Sun
yes.
Ra. But
Bootsy
get
Sun Ra. There we go.
But let's get to
So
Annelies. Annelies.
Annalise, so I'm just trying to give a background. This is his daughter. So she got to drink from that fountain. So she's an amazing songwriter. She's an amazing poet. Her lyrics are like poetry, and she has this way that her father did as well of talking about like kind of tough day to day subjects. Like she has one song on this album that's about the police killing black men, but it's done in such a playful and light way that it almost makes the act seem more sinister. And it's like got a good groove to it. So she's a really masterful songwriter. She's a wonderful person. I really like this album. She has about I think 5 albums out, and I think this was her second. And I just really dig this one. This is the one I always kind of go back to and groove to, and yeah, so it's definitely worth checking out. And I think she's a Brazilian artist that's not so well known outside of Brazil. So she's definitely worth checking out.
No, it's
I'll
cool.
definitely check it out, sweetie.
Yeah, definitely. Because I checked out some of the artists you guys picked from last time, and there's some good stuff, and especially the young artists. And nowadays, what we get in on the radio, 90% of it is just popcorn
Yep.
stuff, uh, and we don't get to hear a lot of these great younger artists. So it's cool that you guys pick these younger artists. Although we will say rest in peace to Maria Mendonça. Okay,
Oh yeah,
Hmm.
music, and though not my style of music, she did have a voice and a half. Oh my
she
goodness.
did.
Yes,
Amazing singer.
and happy for her, all the fans that she was able to get, and really, sad that to see her go so young. But okay, I think we're gonna get a little heavy right now. I don't know. Oh, I think so.
Oh,
Classic album.
yeah,
Yeah,
mhm.
yeah, and it was kind of weird that with like the last podcast we did like essential Brazilian albums, and this nobody picked this.
Yeah,
I mean, personally, like it's one of my. I just picked my favorites really, and I didn't really think essential. But if you're thinking essential, like in terms of people who live outside Brazil, this is it. Like this is for a lot of people. This is the only Brazilian album they know, and yeah, Sepultura were like I think they weren't the first Brazilian artists to really break big outside of Brazil. I mean, Os Mutantes were pretty big outside of Brazil back in the 60s, and some of the old school Sambo guys like Chico Buarque and Caetano Veloso had some success outside of Brazil. But there was a pretty big gap for a long time, and these were for a lot of people the only reason they knew Brazilian music existed. And this is basically their masterpiece. So yeah, my association with these guys, I did actually meet their bass player Paulo Jr. just a couple of weeks ago at their beer launch party, which was kind of cool. He's like basically an original member and very personal guy, happy to talk about music and beer, which is what we were there for. So that was good. But yeah, my association with Sepultura was growing up in the 80s. I used to listen to this university radio station that had an extreme metal show. And, it was back in the days when people traded tapes with people in other countries to pick up different music. And the host of the show, he's actually a really famous documentary filmmaker now. He did Global Metal, and he's done a couple other documentaries looking at metal music, but from an anthropological perspective, because he's also an anthropologist. And yeah, he played Sepultura on his show a lot, and I wasn't that into it because a lot of their early recordings had pretty bad production quality. Like the drums were too loud, the vocals were too low, and it just sounded like a wall of noise. And my best friend used to listen to the show with me, and he's like, "Have you been following Sepultura, like that noise band from Brazil?" And he laid this on me. He was like, "Check it out." And what got this album so much attention, I mean, it's held in high regard, not just in metal circles, but just in music circles in general, is how they incorporated so many Brazilian rhythms into their usual, heavy groove metal sound. Just like the title implies, it's very Brazilian roots. It was inspired by, the rainforests, a lot of tribal rhythms. There's like a 15-minute drum solo, not a drum solo, but like a drum jam with like multiple percussion on it. It has some of their most iconic songs like Cutthroats and the title track as well. So it's a great metal album, but in terms of, a metal band really paying tribute to where they came from and trying to incorporate a lot of the music that they grew up listening to into it, it's a remarkable achievement. I can't think of too many other international metal bands that have done that. And I did actually have a chance because unfortunately, Max and Igor Cavaliera split with Andre Kisser after this album. But they still kind of do like their own thing. And in 2016, I think, they played here at Tropical Butanta for the anniversary of this record, and they performed it in its entirety. And yeah, there's some amazing drums on this. I would say Igor Cavaliera is probably one of the top three drummers I've ever seen live. Guy's amazing.
Hmm.
So yeah, an essential Brazilian album that we skipped last time because I was thinking more of favorites, but in terms of essential for people living outside Brazil, at least, this is pretty much about as well known a Brazilian album as you will find outside of the country.
Yeah.
Right?
And
Go ahead.
may I say something?
Go ahead. Go
Mm,
ahead.
No, I remember back then that it was a real trailblazer, this album, right? In the
yeah,
metal world, like lots of bands, right after it got released, started recording their then new albums, utilizing drums. I mean, like percussion, you know,
yeah.
and trying to sort of emulate that song because it made like a huge impact. That's true. Yeah.
Oh, I remember this 1996. I was what, 15, 16?
Mhm.
And this was on MTV back when they played music all the time,
Yeah.
you know.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
remember Roots, Bloody Roots. That song was just on heavy, heavy, heavy rotation. And I just heard one of their newer songs, really beautiful. I think it's called Guardians of the Earth. So it's really cool
Mhm.
how they still have this connection with the indigenous folks. It starts out very folksy, very slow. I didn't even think it was Sepultura at first, and then towards the middle, kind of one of those epic type metal songs. Starts out slow, and then by the end, everybody's banging heads. But amazing band. In this, yes, this is watershed moment, and
Yeah, and they've kept it pretty real here. Like they generally they play at least one free show in Sao Paulo every year. Because I
Nice.
mean, they're the type of band that can command a pretty big fee, especially in their home country.
yeah.
And yeah, for I remember like once a year, man, you could go see Sepultura for free. It was almost like a stereotype. But yeah, they're happy to give back to the people.
That's very cool, very cool. And I'm glad you mentioned the percussion because that's what really separates them from other metal bands is
Hmm.
that percussion, man, and how they were able to blend very Brazilian sounds into their music. And I believe I'm next. And speaking of
Wow,
bands that
that's a
blend
great
sounds,
choice. Wow. Uh-huh.
yeah,
Mhm.
great album. This is one of the first albums I heard when I got to Brazil. Last podcast I mentioned the Ne Mato Grosso album where he's singing Cartola. That was on heavy play for me when I first got here. And this girl that I met here in Brazil, she made me, a little mixtape, I guess. It had that album. It had Cell's album, which is actually really good. And this one, Cordel do Fogo Encantado, which I guess it's, the
Mhm.
enchanted fire string or something, rope. And it's called Transfiguração, which I misspelled there, but okay, Transfiguration. And guys, how to describe this band? It's kind of funny. We're all kind of feeding off each other because Pete's talked about Sepultura and their ability to blend sounds, and that's what attracts me to this band is that it's at once light and like very folksy. You know, these guys are from Pernambuco, which is in the northeast, so they have that Pernambuco sound, which is that
That's your
folk sound
state,
from
right?
there. Excuse me.
That's your state, right? You're from
Yeah, no,
Pernambuco.
born in Pernambuco. Yeah, they're from Arco Verde.
Okay.
So they mix the sound from up there, you know, the torre indígena, embolada, rezado, samba de coco, um, and yet they also have like a rock sound, and then all of a sudden they get heavy as hell, like almost like a metal band, and you're like, what's going on? And yet, but it all blends together perfectly, and they do it with um, beautiful poetry on top. You know, the lead singer, what's his name? Jose Pais de Lira. Is that the guy, right? He, he not only sings, but he actually does actual poetry in the middle of the song, which, brings me back to Patti Smith and all these artists that I like growing up in the States. So it's a blended sound of, for me, just something I had never heard before. Very Brazilian, but also very whatever, like very everything. And unfortunately, they broke up. I think they only came out with 3 or 4 albums, and then they decided to split up. But maybe it's for the best, because they with those 3 4 albums, they put out a lot of great music. But this is my favorite because it's the first one I heard, and I think it's the most solid. A lot of beautiful songs here in this album, Transfiguration. You ever
That's
hear?
a very special band, right? Because they got, like, as you said, that this really deep connection to poetry, right? It's a bit like, there is a little bit like this of, this minstrel culture,
Yes.
Mm,
go from the northeast,
a Cordel, right? Isn't
yeah,
that what it is?
yeah, sounds a little bit like you're watching them, it feels like you're hearing a band playing at a circus, right?
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
Yes.
in the best possible sense, you know? Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I've seen a few of their clips, and they play on that where they put up little tents and everything, so you feel like you've entered the show. You've entered the one at like the Barnum and Bailey or whatever. What's that? The circus. And yeah, yes, like Lee said, but in the best possible sense, because then the music just goes out there. It's intense, and that's what I love about it. It's almost for me the closest you'll get to a Brazilian Radiohead in that sense, where it just Radiohead's a
Mm.
band that can pretty much go anywhere with their music, from very heavy to light to pop, and it all kind of just gel.
Mhm.
And these guys are able to do that, but with a Brazilian aesthetic and with some nice Brazilian music. So definitely check that out.
Yeah, even the band's name is very dramatic and very full of power and poetry. Like, like, as you know, like a literal translation would be, because cordel is a type of old style of poetry, like kind of medieval kind of poetry.
Okay.
So it's like the medieval poetry of the enchanted fire. You know, like, it's a very powerful. It's
No,
another
it's out there.
big
These
name.
guys are out there. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very out there, and what I like music like that. I like artists, and I mentioned Maria Bethânia a lot in the last podcast. I like artists who realize I'm on a stage, I'm going to perform. Whether it's Alice Cooper or
Mhm.
Patti Smith or Michael Jackson, whatever. They're on the stage. And Mick Jagger,
Mhm.
Bowie. Those are my favorite artists because they're on the stage. They're going to perform. I hate going to a show and just seeing somebody just standing there. It's like, no, I came to see something. Make me
Yeah,
feel
yeah,
something.
yeah. Hmm.
And these guys definitely play along with that. I'm going to shut up for a minute because you can hear me coughing. But before I do, thank you, Travelmatic, for always checking in. Check in next. Oh no, in 2 weeks we're gonna have a live broadcast. You called in once, so be happy to have you back on. And tell us about your year. What happened? Good stuff, bad stuff. Little year in review. So he's saying my favorite Brazilian live stream,
Sweet.
and he also said, "Oh, the panel was wonderful. The panel is always wonderful." And I hope we talk about Brazilian funk tonight. Oh, funk
We
always.
did. Tim Maya.
Tim Maya,
All the other funk. Oh.
the father, the godfather of Brazilian funk. Yes. All right. So,
Can I, can I tell like I think like just a super funny story about this name, Tim Maya. Uh, it's like it's just because it's so crazy that I think it's worth sharing it. Uh, I have a very good friend, and who he's a sannyasi, and he follows a guru, and during the ceremonies, when you're really deep into it, and you're gonna really be like an official follower of, like how Hinduism works, so then you get your name changed, right? You're like you're baptized again by the guru, and there was this guy who was like going through the ceremony, and then there is this pregnant pause, where like the guru is facing the sannyasi, and he's about to name him again, and the guy named this other guy Tim Maya. It's not like actually the same way it is written, but it just sounds Tim Maya. That's like this is like a side story.
I
Yeah.
can believe it. 'Cause this guy was such a guru, man. It's almost like in America, people get married in the Church of Elvis. People. Not Tim Maya. Yeah, well, at least everybody here knows
Well, the
Peter
church is
Lee.
Tim Maya. There probably
Say,
is at least one.
say that again.
There's probably at least one church of Tim Maya.
I'm
There's
sure there is. And in this album, it's right in that era where he was getting into all that the aliens. He joined this cult that was about this dimension.
Oh.
And he's got this really great.
universe in this
Why, like the planets?
Yes,
and-
Universe of Disenchantment.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes.
yes. And he's got
I
this
like
one
these other
really.
planets on the album cover.
He's got this really great song where in the middle of the song, it's groovy as fuck, it's funky as hell, and in the middle of the song, he just starts saying, "By the book."
Whoa!
But in English, and he says it in English, by the book, University.
You said in the song,
Wait,
Is that by BY or by BY?
No, B-U-Y. He's like, buy this book. Oh, and I forgot what the song is because actually our band actually sang the song. It's a song in English. It's something about the people, something people. But anyway, guys, just a little extra on Tim Maya. And for those that are not in Brazil, he is just the universal, musician that everybody loves. From the hard rockers, you can get the hardest metal people on the planet, the funkeiros, the sertanejo guys. You play Tim Maya, everybody's gonna sing Tim Maya. He's just one of those guys. He's just one of those guys.
One of those very few guys. Yes.
Yeah, that just joins everybody. But anyway, let's move ahead here. And it's back to Alissa. Jesus tinha toca Geraldo filme O Canto dos Escravos. The song of the slaves.
I think that should be an R. Is there Geraldo Filme?
Oh, you guys, remember what I wrote in the message in the group that I forgot to do something? It was this. I had forgotten to write the name, so I'm just doing it very quickly. So forgive any misspellings.
No
But
way.
here's Geraldo. Geraldo with no R. Geraldo. It's like that on the album cover.
Yeah, Geraldo.
But I think it's not Filme. I think it's Firme. Firme.
No, it's not. No, it is that. It is like this. It's a funny name, right? I've never seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Wow.
that's what it is. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, no, it is written right there in the thumbnail, actually.
Huh. So, This okay, so I'll give a little bit of history. If you are in the United States and maybe Europe, you've heard of the Negro spirituals, probably, possibly. And they are pretty much like the oldest song forms in the United States that are Native American music, that are like American music, right? Because there's music that came over from Europe, but the spirituals were, for me, I think the first American music.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was basically the enslaved Africans. uh, they took some like hymns, church hymns, and they sung them in a way that was very African. Um, and they also had their own songs, a lot of call and response. But these are some of the oldest songs, and they're very kind of like, they're very, I hate to use the word primal, but they're very like, very foundational, let's say, because there were not many instruments at all. They were mostly part of the vocal tradition. And so these are in Brazil, they have a similar tradition called visunga. So the visungas are like the Negro spirituals in Brazil. And that's some of what we have here in this Canto dos Escravos, which means songs of the slaves. And one of the best things about this, the arrangements are very sparse, so there's not a whole lot of instrumentation. It's mostly their voices. And Clementina de Jesus, if you've never heard this woman's voice, it's like she is singing with the voices of ancestors from 500 years back. This woman has such potency in her voice, and her voice is very like, it's raw. It's just raw. She was a cleaning woman, and she didn't even become famous till she was like 70. So when I heard her singing samba, I was like, oh, Chiadoka is also, and this is these singers are all from Rio. Chiadoka also. So you have women that are from this tradition singing songs of their ancestors, and I just find it to be really beautiful. There's some very nice vocal arrangements on it. There's percussion. I believe it's just percussion and voice mostly. But if you're interested in like really, really roots Brazil music, like before samba, before like chorinho, before any of that, this is it.
Wow, I'll definitely check it out. I should know this album by now, but I will definitely check it out. I watched a documentary about Clementina de Jesus, and it was just amazing. I mean, and she got discovered like, I think like she was over 60, right? When
Yeah,
she, yeah,
yeah, yeah.
hmm, yeah.
Yeah, she was an older woman, so
Hmm.
worked her life as a washerwoman, and then yeah, pretty amazing.
I'll
And this
check
is
this
in the
out too. I had
80s
never heard
too,
of this.
right? This is still military dictatorship time.
Yeah, that
And
is, yeah, that
yeah, it
is
was.
during dictatorship time. And I think she learned from her mother or grandmother, something like that. Like she knew how to sing a few songs in African languages.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
probably. I mean,
Yeah.
because these are the song traditions were just all passed down orally. You
Hmm.
know, people learned to sing. People didn't go to voice class. They would learn from their family, from their mothers and fathers. Same
Yeah.
thing here in Bahia with the tradition of samba shula in the countryside. It's like my mom sang samba, my grandma sang samba, and her grandma sang samba, and that's how I learned. And
Yeah. I think she does sing some stuff in some African language. I don't know which African language, but and I don't know if on this album, but there are some songs she sings not in Portuguese. You know.
there might be some things from Candomblé, and then they would
Mhm.
probably be in Yoruba.
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, I got hip to her, I think, last year, and I've seen a bunch of YouTube clips of just her singing alone. And yeah, you're pretty much just getting a raw deal. This is like finding somebody's grandma that was sitting on the porch singing some old blues and say, hey, here's a camera and a microphone. And that's it. It's raw, 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 and it's beautiful. It's beautiful. I've never heard of this album, though, so I'll check this out.
That's really
But
nice if you like it.
I'll definitely check it out. Definitely check it out. And it's good history you gave because I didn't know about that history of the Brazilian quote unquote, spiritual whatever, like the slave songs, which
Mhm.
I'm sure they had also, but
Mhm.
it's not a history that's told as much in Brazil.
Yeah.
No, it's not. I actually just learned because I'm doing a project where I'm researching samba de roda, which like that's the tradition in Bahia, so the roots tradition here, and is samba chula from the Recôncavo,
Oh,
and
Samba Shula is so nice, right?
yeah,
Samba
and
Shula is
so
so
which are also the same things. These are songs that were passed down from ancestors, and in the southeast you have jongo,
yeah.
Congada in Congo, Congada in Minas. And so in researching, I was talking about with one of the Brazilian singers I'm working with about Negro spirituals. And she's like, yeah, we have them too. They're called Visungas. And I was like, oh, so like, yeah, I just love those connections. I love
Cool,
those
cool.
connections.
No, definitely check that out. All right, we're moving to Lee
Mhm.
with Caetano Veloso, Circulado, 1991.
Circulador, circulador. Yeah.
Colado.
Circulador, yeah, which is a word that doesn't exist, but it's like the way it is spoken in the Northeast. It should be circulador with an R in the end, when without the circumflex accent, But that's just the way it is spoken, circulador, which is like it's a funny thing. It's like it's a way. It's like a very sort of a country in northeastern Brazil, country deep northeastern Brazil way of referring to the sunflower, which we have another name like girassol, but some people would say circulador de fulô, like the flower that circulates, the flower that
Oh,
revolves. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
fascinating.
I
yeah,
didn't know that. Cool.
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And although Caetano Veloso, yes, is a household name, but this particular album, guys, I think it's a pearl. Like there isn't like one song, at least to me, that is not like excellent. It's like, those few albums that sound like a compilation because all the songs are good, you know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and it's beautiful. It's got like a beautiful partnership with Milton Nascimento in one of the songs,
Mm-hmm.
and I think it was the very first album where Jacques Morelenbaum started work with Caetano. So we start to have that cello flavor that became kind of, a characteristic of a long period in his career. And I think this is the first album, at least definitely the album where that cello became like really known. The cello
Mm-hmm.
sound, became really known to everybody, which gives like a kind of a certain kind of a modal music feel, like a kind of meditation kind of, when mantric kind of feel, like, as like some of the music from the Northeast is a little mantric, like mantra like, and Caetano singing, I mean, Caetano is still singing well, right? I mean, among all the other guys his age, he's the only one who still sings really well, and he's singing so beautifully there, and all the songs are very, very special. This is, I think it's kind of, I mean, he has released so many other great albums after this one, very, very relevant albums. But I think, like, if I had to choose, if I were to say what is like the last, like, 10 grade 10 Caetano Veloso album, like totally like grade 10, to my taste, it would be this one, his last one, like grade 10, 10, 10. It's amazing. Yeah.
I dug this album. This is one that would float around a lot when I was in college. I would see it on a lot of people's shelves. So it managed to get up to the States somehow. The big song from here that I think they knew up there that would play on the station is, what's that? Alguma coisa está fora da ordem.
Oh, they-
Da ordem mundial.
yeah,
Even that part in English with the girl, it's like it's something that's gone out of order. Out
yeah,
of Yeah, that's a cool, funky song. It's a nice album. It's not my favorite of his, but it's a cool album. Really
Mhm.
cool album. When because it's Caetano still well, no, he still experiments a little bit, but right in that period where he didn't go so pop, because I think there was a period where he went too pop. But
Mhm.
he messes around every once in a while. He just goes back to the drawing board. It's like, let me just get a little experimental, a little funky, a little this, a little that, and we
Mhm.
got some nice Caetano, and then he just kind of goes too mellow for me. And then every 10 years or so, he comes out with some really amazing
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah, I think that's what's special about this album. I mean, it's not like too weird, but it's definitely not too conventional. It's like it's a nice mix, you know.
Yes, yes, definitely, definitely. Highly recommend this one, guys. Definitely, definitely. And I think it's either me or Pete next. I think it's Pete. Ooh, we're going way
All
back.
right.
God,
Yeah.
what a great album!
Get out of
Yeah,
here.
yeah. And this
Two.
is really timely actually because I just re-listened to this not that long ago. Like earlier last week, I think last Tuesday, I was just like, put something on. Haven't heard this in a while. And yeah, I just got right into it. It was like instantly it's like, ooh, I feel like I'm in Brazil. Like you are in Brazil, dumbass. But I mean, like it totally gives those vibes. This is basically old school Bahia samba. And when I discuss this actually with other samba fans, most of them are actually not that into it because they're into the Rio de Janeiro samba. And I get this whole lecture about, oh, no, 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 Rio de Janeiro samba, Bahia samba. It's like completely different genres of music. Like we're into the Rio stuff. But I really dig. I mean, the other last podcast we were all on together, somebody did the Secos and Mulattoes album, which is also kind of like this. They're a little more psychedelic, whereas Novos Baianos are just pretty much more like laid back, pure samba. But like when you listen to it, like you can just feel your shoulders start to shake, your hips get into it, but like you're relaxed, right? You're in the groove. I don't speak Portuguese. I know some words. So basically, looking at the song titles, I can get the gist of what the songs are about. But it's not the lyrical content. It's just like, it's the groove, man. It's like, it doesn't make you want to get up and dance actually, because it's super mellow. It's not like, dancing and shaking it on the dance floor. It's more like smoking a spliff and sitting back and just kind of moving with the beat. Um, we've talked a bit about like for people who are outside Brazil, like what artists could you compare them to? And even though musically the style is quite a bit different, they remind me a bit of J.J. Cale, who is a really popular American blues and country singer from Oklahoma. Eric Clapton covered a lot of his shit, notably Cocaine, I think, is the one he's best known for. But he's like a musical
Eric Clapton
narcotic.
definitely covered a lot of cocaine.
Yeah, yeah. but he was like a musical narcotic. Like you just put the music on and you like instantly relax. Like if you're feeling tense, this is like the perfect thing to listen to. Like how could you not be happy and relaxed listening to this music? It's got such a good vibe. And our topic is essential Brazilian albums. And I would say this qualifies. I mean, it came out in 1972 and it's still relevant, and people listen to this all the time. For some reason, most of their other stuff, no, I don't know why that is. But this one album is like considered an iconic Brazilian album. I believe, yeah, Rolling Stone Brazil in 2007 rated it the number one Brazilian album of all time.
Wow.
Wow.
So, yeah, it is very relevant and very essential. And I
But
think probably especially so in Bahia.
yeah, but Pete, don't you think there is also like an element of rock and roll to this album?
Absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, that's why I compared it to J.J. Cale,
Yeah.
because J.J. Cale was a little rock and roll too. Like he was folk, he was blues, but if you look in like they don't have record stores anymore. But back in the day, you would find them listed under rock as well. So
Hmm.
yeah, definitely, it's a little bit rock and roll. They don't use distortion. They're all
Hmm.
acoustic. But just because it's acoustic doesn't mean it can't be rock.
Yeah, yeah, true.
Yeah, I'm reading here that the group adopted the expressive guitar of Jimi Hendrix and was heavily influenced by George Roberto. And exactly what Lee said. I don't listen to Novos Baianos a lot, but when I do, I always get that feel that there's samba, but they're like a little bit extra. They add a little bit more to it and makes them unique because of that. It's not just a straight up samba album or samba group because of that. And I think that's how they were managed to kind of cross over and get these other years kind of attuned because they could play around with the sound, a little bit. And it's very cool band, very cool band.
And
Yes.
there is something also, they lived together. They had
Right.
a ranch, in Jacarepaguá in the 70s. So we're talking about a band that would, wake up, cook, and rehearse, and then rest a little bit, smoke a spliff, and then rehearse a
Yeah.
little more, and they did it for a long time. So they are like so much in tune, like really doing everything together. Lots of kids, were born in that range, and stuff. And it's one of those really hippie, amazing experience, right in the,
Exactly.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
they lived together, man. The whole band lived together for, years. It wasn't like just I know, let's live together while we write these songs. No, they lived together for years. It was really amazing.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny if you look at the time too. It was like 1972,
Mhm.
and like a lot of samba and bossa nova music at the time was pretty downbeat, because it was like military dictatorship time.
Mhm.
People were feeling like pretty oppressed, a lot of poverty and whatnot, and these guys were just like having fun. Like
Yeah.
it's fun sounding music,
Yeah.
and that largely gets attributed to pop. Like pop's the sort of music you listen to just forget your problems and have fun, but they
Mhm.
really do it here too. You get the feeling of a band just like grooving out and being happy.
Yeah. And I
You know,
think it's, sorry, go on.
Well, another thing that I don't know this particular album, but I know that for a lot of the groups from this period of the dictatorship, they also the music was fun, but the lyrics were very critical of what was going on politically, and the music was really like the only way that people really had to express their feelings about
Mhm.
what was going on in the country. And a lot of these artists were so brave. Caetano and Gil had to leave the country because most of these artists used their music as a platform to criticize the government.
Mhm.
So,
But
Yeah,
but
go ahead.
just one thing. But these guys, particularly, they were different. I mean, their lyrics are not political.
They weren't political at all.
It's just fun, and it's like I think they also play an important role because as artists, we sometimes feel like almost like oppressed to talk about. I have like some political songs, and I feel I have this necessity of writing some political songs, especially now, according to what we're going through. But it's very liberating, to remember that, at the height of the dictatorship, there was this amazing band that, lived together and smoked, I don't know, 15 spliffs per day. And they were just like having fun and dropping acid and not talking about politics and creating like amazing music. And, to each one their own. Yeah.
Yeah, and even the title of this album, the title is like "No More Crying." It's like,
Yeah.
no, man, we're not like hung up on shit, man. We're just like you said, like it's total hippie music. Like they're just grooving, man. No more
Yeah.
crying. We're not down, brother. We're doing our own trip.
Yeah.
And sometimes that's important too. I
Yeah.
think if you even go into American music around the 60s and the 70s, of course, there's a lot of political music, but sometimes there's just songs that like let's just get down and dance. You know, sometimes it's an artist's job to just let you forget that
Hmm.
the world is shit, and let's just dance. Let's have a song about grooving and dancing and making love and all that stuff. So, you
Hmm.
know, it's nice to have a break from that sometimes. Um, all right, I'm moving ahead so we can get in under 2 hours. This is the last of our second round here of picks, and I put down Hermeto Pascoal, Al Vivo, the
Mm.
Montreal Jazz. And I found out about this guy. This is from 1979, this album, and it looks like it's really kind of difficult to get. I was looking for, might be on Spotify, but you can find it on YouTube. This is how I listen to it. I actually, they have the visual and everything. They have the actual concert on YouTube. Check
Wow.
it, guys. I did not know this guy existed until about 5 years ago. I was friends with a wonderful lady who sadly passed away, but she was a jazz musician that came down to Brazil and just fell in love like way back in the 60s. And she lived here and died here in her 80s. And being a jazz musician, you know, she would always give me good stuff to listen to. And then she mentioned this guy's name, and I was like, oh, let me check it out. And man, was I blown away, you know? He's definitely jazz, but he's jazz with a lot of wackiness in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah.
Uh, you could almost say a little bit of Frank Zappa, you know, because he would play, you know, teacups and hammers and, you know, make music with all these different types of instruments and a lot of vocalizations too. Like, what's that guy from Don't Worry, Be Happy? Forgot his name now.
Bob
Bobby McFerrin.
Yes, yes, a lot of vocalizations. Man, watch. I mean, just go on YouTube and put the live at Montreux. It's an hour of amazing, incredible music that goes from free jazz to like Brazilian rhythms to, like we said, like just kind of insane vocalizations and improvisations and songs starting from just him going
Hmm.
and then
Yeah.
all of a sudden it's this and that and and then you're like, whoa, uh, incredible, incredible, incredible. And for me, it's special because as much as I love Brazilian music, there's definitely the quote unquote Brazilian sound, you know, that as experimental as some of these artists can be, it always kind of does have that Brazilian sound, whether it's the little batuca in the background or some, you know, something that reminds you I'm listening to Brazilian music. Whereas Hermeto is just he's free. I mean, he'll do that too, but he's, you know, I mean, you listen to him, you put some Chick Corea on right after, you're like, you're just, you know, in the groove. And I was reading up on him a little bit, and I didn't even know he played with Miles Davis, you know, so he's, you know,
Oh,
internationally recognized uh, and multi instrumentalist, and just one of the most incredible finds that I was able
Hmm.
to run into because of my friend there. Because yeah, I thought I had hit like the peak. I was like, man, I mean, what else is there here in as far as classic Brazilian music? There's always new artists coming out, and then there's this guy that came
Yeah.
out of nowhere and said, "What the hell is this? Incredible, 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 Hermeto."
Okay. You know, there is one. He's got like totally perfect pitch, right? And he says,
Mhm.
"Oh, Phil, you talk in F sharp, whatever," you know.
Yeah,
And he musified one of our, one of our ex president's speeches. You know, it's on YouTube. If amazing. So it's really amazing. If you type like Hermeto Pascoal, Fernando Collor de Mello, you know, our then president, there is this, and Fernando Collor goes like, "We will change this country. We will change this country." And then in the background it's Hermeto, "Chum, change it down, chum, change it now." It's really amazing.
wow,
look,
nice.
dude's incredible. Look, it says here that he played on Miles Davis' 1971 album Live Evil, which featured him on three pieces, which he also composed. So Davis allegedly called Pascal the most impressive musician in the world, and I could
Wow.
believe it. I could believe it. Like I had no clue this guy existed, and then you watch this video. this concert. You're like, what am I watching? It's incredible,
Yeah,
incredible music. He's known as the Brushu, the sorcerer, because he just
yeah.
makes
Mhm.
music out of anything, children's toys,
Mhm.
animals, keyboards, buttons, whatever. But also, he's got skill. He also just he'll lay it down on that keyboard, man. He's a really awesome, really awesome.
No, and he's such a prolific writer. I mean, he's got this habit. I mean, he's been having this thing about writing one song per day for decades. So he has like some albums, like I don't know, like 1998, and there is the song to January 1st, January 2nd, July you
Oh,
know
Wow.
cool.
one song per day. I mean, he's an albino. He's like different from everybody. you know
Yeah.
Crazy. No, yeah.
It's amazing.
The people said, "Oh, he's kind of like Frank Zappa." I'm not a huge Frank Zappa fan, so it kind of turned me off a little bit. But then I was like, "No, this is better than Frank Zappa."
Yeah. Sometimes he reminds me of Sun Ha. Remember Sun Ra?
Yeah, Sun Ra. Yeah,
Yeah.
just a little bit more unconventional, which I like, And then he goes into this Chick Corea free jazz, and
Mhm.
then he goes. It's cool stuff, guys. But let's move ahead. But again, like I said, I don't know where you can find this album. I'm sure it's out there
It
somewhere.
is
But
on Spotify. I just found it.
how you found it? Cool, cool,
Yeah.
cool. Okay, but it's on YouTube too. I'm a YouTuber. I'm poor. I don't have Spotify. Anyway, now we're back to Lee.
Hmm.
Hugo Barnabé, is that how you say it? Clara Crocodilo, 1980.
Yeah. This is like this is a album I listened to so much, back then. And to me, I mean, I really love this album. It's got like various elements because it's like this guy Arrigo Barnabé. You mentioned him, right, Alissa? He also contributed
Yeah.
to the Itamar Assunção. They are from the same era, right? Like
Hmm.
The São Paulo music scene in the early '80s, right? The '80s,
Hmm.
so on. This is actually like a concept album, so the lyrics are connected, so to talk about one single story, you know and it's got like a big band lineup, like a big band jazz big band lineup. And Rigo Barnabé singing is just like the weirdest, but it really fits in for his style because he sings like that and he's very theatrical and he's always singing like that. But then he sings like that, and there are two female singers, so there's lots of dialogues. It's just very, very theatrical. You can picture the situations in your mind and stuff. It's super crazy, like this crazy guy always singing like this, you know
Tom Waits.
yeah. And the two female singers. And it's so funny because I myself write naturally some songs in a dialogue format, thinking about like, oh no, two women should sing this and I should sing this and blah blah blah. And I had always ascribed that to basically the B-52s and a Brazilian band called Blitz. But then just like a few years ago, I reminded myself, no, 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 no. It's not only the B-52s and Blitz, but you were highly influenced by, this crazy motherfucker, as Phil well puts it. And it's funny because it's got humor, it's very theatrical, and it's dodecaphonic. It's really highbrow, sometimes like really like highbrow kind of music, dodecaphonism and stuff. But there is like a song called Total Orgasm, so it's like it's like it's super crazy. And it's this very song, Total Orgasm, it's one of the most dodecaphonic songs in the album. And it does like oozes with sexual energy, and it's like super complicated music. And then these female singers going like so it's like it's very, but in the end everything blends well together. It's a super creative album, super unique. It's my favorite album of his. And it got like a new release. I mean, it made like kind of success back then. So it got like a new record, and then everybody got back together to record the album again, like 25 years later. But I prefer the original recording, and I highly recommend you guys to listen at least to the first two songs. The second one being Total Orgasm. Yeah, it's an amazing, the São Paulo scene in the early 80s, yeah,
Was intense.
yeah.
I think we're gonna shift. Oh, I'm echoing again.
How about your accent?
Now I'm not echoing anymore. I think we're gonna shift a little bit styles here with Tigana. Is that it? Or Tigana? How do you pronounce it?
Chicana.
Yeah, Masale, 2010
Yes.
album. New artist.
So Chicana is from Bahia, and he's, I think, my favorite Brazilian composer at the moment. Definitely my favorite Bahian composer. He's from a family that is connected with candomblé, and very involved connected in the culture and politics of Bahia. His mother is currently, I think, the Secretary of Culture here, if that still exists. Anyway, and he was groomed to become a diplomat. He went to the best schools. He's a polyglot. He speaks something like 5 languages. But he decided to become a musician. And so he takes all of this exposure that he had. It's because he has the academic side. He's a poet, but he's also, he comes from a family that's very much entrenched in the Afro-Brazilian traditions of Bahia, of Salvador. And so he just, to me, he's kind of like the contemporary soul of Bahia in the way he writes. And he's an amazing poet. Like, I have to sit down with a dictionary for his lyrics. But there's also something that goes beyond the lyric for me. Like, even if I don't understand all the words, I feel like I understand at a soul level where his music is coming from. He manages to bring the ancestral and the contemporary together. He writes in French, Portuguese, English, Kikongo, which is an African language, Bantu language, and one other African language. He works with artists around the world to record his songs. He produced Virginia Rodriguez's last album. He just released something with Baiana System. He's super prolific, and it's a very quiet sound. It's not something that you would listen to that and say, oh, it's Bahia. You would be expecting percussion and but it's very quiet. Like, it's him and his guitar. It's very contemplative. But it does have percussion, but it's a more subtle percussion oftentimes. And it's not even just Bahian percussion. He has gone to Africa, to Senegal, and he did an album where he works with Senegalese artists, like kind of like reconnecting the continents and the people through the music. It's really beautiful. But this particular one was before that. And this one is really like, has more Bahian rhythms on it, and themes from Candomblé. And then his own personal musings. But it's an exquisite album. I like a lot of his songs, but I keep coming back to this album because there's just some amazing songs. One of my favorite songs in the world that I don't even understand all the lyrics, but one of those songs you just put it on repeat and you just listen to it all day and you're just smiling because it just feels good.
We should do more of those because I'm dying to listen to your suggestions, guys. The ones I don't know. I mean, I will definitely check this one out. Thank you, Alissa.
Really good. He plays in Sao Paulo quite a bit too because I think well, you're in Rio, right, Lee?
No. I'm in Sao Paulo. I lived in Rio, but for a long time, but I'm back to my hometown.
He plays in Sao Paulo quite a bit. You'll probably see him there before I see him in Bahia because he lives there part time.
Mm,
So check him out live if you can.
I will.
It's very subtle music. Alisa sent this to me. Maybe a little too subtle for me, but it was beautiful. But yes, it's just it was. I forgot what you sent me, Alisa. It was just him and the guitar, and very
Oh
comfortable.
yeah. Hmm.
Yeah, and it's just something you need to just sit down and really kind of really get into to and listen to. But it was beautiful. It's just not my style very much. I need a little
Hmm.
bit more injection of fluids in my music, but it was gorgeous,
Yeah.
um, nonetheless. So definitely check this guy out. New talent, new talents are what I like to see. And I believe now, before we get our last two here, I think it's me and Pete. I just want to say because we do got a few people on. In 2 weeks, guys, our last podcast of the year. Okay, so I want to have everybody on 10 p.m. and you tell us about your year. Pete and I will tell us you about our year, the good, the bad, the ugly. And, just I hope everybody can make it. Okay. And now, I believe it's Pete. Oh, yes, it is Pete
Yeah,
from Alaska, unlikely, 2017. This is a Brazilian band, man.
it is. They're from Natal, actually.
Yes.
Not really known as a rock mecca, as I have met these guys on a number of occasions, actually, and yeah, they're pretty quick to tell me that the reason they're in Sao Paulo so often is there's nowhere to play in Natal. But these guys have actually played a lot of international dates as well. They played the South by Southwest Festival at least twice. So they're actually getting better known outside of Brazil than they are in Brazil. And so, yeah, speaking of new talent, so yeah, this I just kind of wanted to share. I think I picked two essential Brazilian albums, really essential Brazilian albums, and this is just fanboy shit. A band that I really like. Um, Not a brand new band. I think their first album came out in 2014, and they've been a while. They've been around a while before that. But a band that I've seen live at least 5 times. They actually played one of the best shows that I've seen in Brazil by Brazilian bands at Verada Cultural. They shared the stage with Christian and Atos de Porral, which was really unlikely because Christian are a full blown death metal band. Atos de Porral are a very
Well,
hardcore
their album
band.
is called Unlikely, so it's all good.
Yeah, exactly. No, these guys are basically a garage rock band, but like heavy driving garage rock. And I like both their albums, but I picked this one because it was kind of interesting, the process they went through making it. They sing in English, which is really unusual for not just a Brazilian band, but also for a band from Natal. Maybe one of the reasons why they don't get a lot of gigs there. Singing in English might not be going over that well in Natal. But yeah, all their songs are in English. And for this album, what they did was the band members gave each other animal names and told them to write a song with this animal as a theme. Most of the songs aren't actually about animals, but it was a creative process to kind of like, okay, take a concept about this animal and turn it into a song about something real. So like their song, there's a song on there called Rhino, which is actually about the process of writing the song itself. Like, I'm stuck here. I can't think of anything to write about a rhino, kind of thing. And they referenced Whitney Houston's "I Will Always Love You," which was a song that was actually written basically solely based on the title. They came up with the title first, and then they wrote the song. So it's got a lot of creative lyricism, but the music is pretty rock solid too. Like if you, I Again, looking for something to compare the style to, I would compare it to like the White Stripes, especially because they have a female vocalist, but a little heavier. Like the White Stripes are a little more laid back and bluesy, whereas these guys are pretty full on. Like when you go see them live, like they put on a show. They're active. They're all over the place. People mosh at their shows, and they're not even a moshing band really. But it's like that style of garage rock where you get whiplash shaking your head. But it's really impressive to see Brazilian musicians coming up with this level of English language songwriting. So, I mean, if you're one of those people who's looking to get into Brazilian music and you think, well, the lyrics are important for me, I don't understand Portuguese, I can't get into music I don't understand. I think this is a really good band to get your feet wet with because they do all sing in English and their English language songwriting is amazing, like really high level lyricism on top of just being a great like rock your balls off garage rock band.
Nice.
And that's all I got to say about that because I'm the only person who knows about this band. So it's highly recommended and we can move on.
I like the slippers.
Yeah. Well, that's the animal theme, right?
What's up with that jelly sandwich?
I actually have no idea. I'm sure it relates to a lyric I may have forgotten, but what are the slippers supposed to represent? I know they represent something. Are there any big cats? No, there's no big cats. We have cobra, bear, flamingo, pig, elephant, monkey, pelican. Oh, maybe that's supposed to be a pizza. Doesn't look like a pizza. It looks like a half a jelly sandwich. But it's the only song that isn't named after an animal. So maybe it's supposed to represent a pizza. Armadillo, rhino, slug, and owl. So yeah, the only song not named after an animal is pizza. So I don't know. Maybe the jelly sandwich is supposed to represent a pizza.
I'm curious now. Yeah.
Yeah, you might dig them. I mean,
It's
you're into all
probably on
kinds
Google
of stuff. It's
somewhere.
heavy. It's heavy.
Mhm.
Oh, this picture reminds me of me. I got a pair of these for Christmas once, one of these snuggy little footsie things, whatever. I forgot what they were called. And I love, look, they have like my favorite jelly, which is difficult to find in Brazil, good grape jelly. And I used to get it and I used to fall on the floor. And you're like waking up in the morning.
Yeah, but it never falls on that side, though.
Yeah, this is true. Lee, you know this song? We're gonna rule the world. Don't you
Don't
know?
you know? Don't you know?
We're gonna keep it
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Yes,
That,
that's the song I was trying to think of. And then, guys, just listen to this. Listen, you all. We're going to tell you the most important thing that you ever heard in your life. You never heard that before. We came from a super world of rational energy, and we live in an anti world of animals energy. Read the book, the only book, the book of God, universe, and disenchantment, and you're going to know the truth. And we're
it's
going
such a
to
sad
rule the
beat.
world.
Such a sad.
Yeah, then it goes right back to that funky ass song. You're like, what the fuck is going on? That's Shemaya at his best. Anyway, uh, let's close this out with one of my favorite Brazilian musicians of all time, Mr. Tom Zé. Oh my goodness. I discovered Tom Zé in the United States because I think I had mentioned a little bit about him in the last podcast, and maybe even this album. David Byrne came to Brazil back in the 80s, and he's just sifting through vinyl records, and he found an album called, what is it? Aprendendo Samba. I think that's one of his classic albums from the 70s, Learning How to Samba. So David Byrne's like, okay, yeah, I want an album that says Learn Samba. And then he puts it on. He's like, what the hell am I listening to? Because Tom says is an out there kind of guy. So he's going to get you that samba sound, but he's making um, vocalizations and playing, saws in the middle of the music. Kind of again going back to Hermeto and even a little bit of Frank Zappa ish, but with the samba sound and the tropicalia sound. And what happened though, in the late '60s to the '70s, we had the tropicalia movement here in Brazil, which was a movement that was the avant-garde mixed with pop, uh, mixed with classic Brazilian music, and it was carried forward with the Mutantes, of course, Caetano, Gal, Gilberto Gil, and Betânia to some extent. Um, and Tom Zé was part of that movement, but for whatever reason, he just didn't fit after a while. I think they got kind of pop, and he didn't decide to go pop, and he was just a forgotten artist. So there's a cool interview with David Byrne where he's talking about, putting Tom Zé on his label, Loaca Pop, and getting his music heard again in the US. And folks asked him, why did you choose this guy? Brazilians in New York asked him, why did you choose this guy to put on the records? We have so many more famous, yeah, we have so many more famous singers and classic artists. And he's like, well, maybe that's why. One is because I think this guy needs to be heard. And two, like I think like Alissa said, because it's David Byrne and he's an out there guy. And he's like, and he just kind of fits the New York scene of, he fit the New York scene at that time. And I was thinking about putting one of his older albums on here because his '70s albums are really classic. But this is the one that introduced me to him, and I think it's so beautiful. And I think it's an artist that finally, it's almost like he found his moment, like 30 years later. Like it's everything that he was doing in the '70s, but with good production value, with top level musicians, and just freedom to just produce the album that he really wants to produce. And here, we'll throw money at you, just make your album. And it's unbelievable. It's got the weirdness, but it's gorgeous at the same time. It's got this very rootsy Brazilian sound to it at the same time. From Bahia, he's a Baiano. It's very political, very funny. Lot of I know Alissa, you love the vocal stuff. So he's got these women that sing with him throughout the album. They do these beautiful vocalization bits in the middle, and it's just an apex for me. It's like, again, it's like an artist that's come out with good albums. You can think of a couple artists like that have always come out with good albums, but then they finally got the chance to make the album. And I think for me, this is it. It takes all of that stuff that, hey, maybe you guys didn't hear this in the '70s. So here's a taste of it, plus all the experience and all, and how much better I've gotten in 30 years. Take this. And it's unbelievable. I was listening to it before we came on, and it's still just as fresh, just as beautiful. And also special to me because this is 1998. So this is before Brazil, coming to Brazil was even a thought for me. I was just starting to get into Brazilian music. I think I got into Brazilian music like 95, 96. So to discover this and realize, oh my God, Brazilian music is more than just MPB. I was really into the MPB and some samba and stuff like that. It's alternative and it's experimental and it's different. It can be weird. It's the Talking Heads, a band that I really love. So high marks for Tom Zé. I think he finally got his justice later in life for being left out by Caetano. I have a friend of mine, Marcelo. Who loves, he respects Caetano like everybody I imagine does, but he always has this thing with him, and he's like, the guy's a little bit of an asshole for that, because he's like, they formed this little clique in the '70s, and then as soon as the clique hit, if you weren't part of that clique, it was tough for you to get in, and a lot of great artists were kind of just shoved out, and I think Tom Zé was one of them. And there's a cool documentary that I saw in the cinema here in Brazil called Tropicalia, and Tom Zé is interviewed, and he talks about this a little bit, about how he really felt hurt about just being shoved out. And he's saying, man, Tropicalia is supposed to be about staying avant-garde, staying on the fringes. And these motherfuckers, like he curses, he doesn't care. He just says whatever comes to his mind. Like, these motherfuckers kick me out of the group, and I'm Tropicalia, man. I'm actually still Tropicalia. And he's so right, you know. So it's like, you know, because they all went pop, you know, in
Yeah.
amazing pop music. And he's like, no, I stayed true to what Tropicalia is supposed to be, even to this day. Uh, and very accessible, though. Very accessible music, very melodic music. But
And
you see where it.
and does that attitude at all relate to the title of this album? Because I guess that would be translated as like with manufacturing defects.
Yeah, fabrication defect. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think this album is very political. So he's talking more, I think, about the structure of Brazilian society and governments in general. Uh, the lyrics are. He's a great lyricist too, and what's cool about his lyrics once you start learning the Portuguese is the play on words, the ability to just you don't realize he made fun of you until like the next verse. You're like, oh my god, you know, like he's not talking about that. He's talking about this, and he's telling you you're a motherfucker to your face without saying motherfucker. Uh, so really, really, really great Brazilian artist, still around. You know, I think he's in his 80s now, but a really cool guy, really cool guy.
Hey, he's got a song about orgasms too.
Oh
There you go. There's a theme.
Yeah, dude.
Yeah. Maybe the third episode is gonna only be about songs that talk about.
We talk about orgasm. It's orgasmo terceirizado. And
Oh
what was
my
the other
God!
name?
Outsourced orgasm.
oh, orgasms are always good. Always good. Um, but for sure, definitely a really strong album to listen to, and a real interesting guy. Just like you know, if your Portuguese is good enough, just go on YouTube and listen to his interviews because he's just one of those people that has no filter. Just all comes out. It all comes out. It's usually pretty funny stuff that he says. Really funny stuff. All right, y'all, we did it.
We
All right.
did.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everybody
That's
gets
Reasonable hour.
ours.
everybody gets a round of
Yeah,
applause.
90 minutes actually.
No,
Hey,
this
I
is
want to thank you guys. I like was kind of simultaneously surfing Spotify as you guys were mentioning your albums and putting them in playlists. So I'm gonna check out the recommendation.
I should have done that. I should have done that, but we have the list on our group on WhatsApp, right?
yes.
Yeah.
Good.
But we don't have Phil's and
No, I sent you Pete's. I'll send you mine, but I think sent Pete's in there.
did you? Okay.
Yes, but I'll make a nice list. Actually, guys, to those that listen, I'll do exactly like I did for the last one. I'll just timestamp them and put the album and where you can find them. Most of them either are on Spotify or YouTube. I'm a YouTuber when it comes to music. I just put on ad block so I don't get hit with the stupid ads in the middle of a song, and that's good enough for me. But folks,
Yeah. And a
thank
lot of the
you.
more obscure stuff actually you can probably find in a record shop in Sao Paulo. We're
Oh,
we're drowning in record shops here.
Yes, they have some really good record shops here. Well, folks, thank you for listening. Okay, those that hung out with us, you guys are awesome. Thank you, Lee and Alissa, for coming back and closing out the year. I mean, we still
It
got
was a pleasure.
Oh,
Thank you, guys. Thank you.
having us.
No, it's awesome. It's awesome. And you're such lovers of Brazilian music. Everybody here is. So we're going to try to do this again. No, we're not going to try. We're going to definitely do it again sometime mid next year and just bring more cool Brazilian music. There's so much of it. And that's it. That's it. So, guys, listening, don't forget in 2 weeks, we will be back for our last podcast. It's a live call-in show. So feel free to I'll let you know how you can be on the air with us if you want to. And everybody else, my outro music is going to play. And I gotta put on my NPR voice time. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for listening to the Brazil Expat Journal. Kelly, you can
Okay. See you guys. That was amazing.
see you next time. Okay. Bye bye.
Bye
Keep
bye.
driving, Kelly. Bye.